All right, so I hope you enjoyed the last chapter where we worked with widgets, and we're going to continue customizing things here in our WordPress blog by now turning our attention to plugins. Now, what the heck is a plugin? Well, you might know about plugins from the traditional software world. For example, Photoshop has plugins and Firefox has plugins. Essentially, what plugins do is, well, they're like an extra add-on that allow you to expand the capabilities of your application, whatever that application may be. So, for example, one of the reasons why Firefox is such a popular browser is because of this customizability, this expandability. And likewise, one of the big reasons why WordPress is the most popular blogging platform is this idea of plugins and customizability. It's incredibly flexible. If you're a developer, you can create your own plugins and then share them with the WordPress community. Or if you're more like myself, more of a designer and a creator and not so much of a programmer, you can make use of other people's plugins that they've created and supplied to the community. Now, what's extremely cool about plugins is there are plugins for virtually everything that you can imagine. If you want to try and find a plugin that's going to allow you to display Flash video on your site, there's a plugin for it. If you want to make sure that your Flickr account is visible on your WordPress blog, there's a plugin for it. If you wanted to display your Twitter feed on your blog, yes indeed, there's a plugin for it. So there's a plugin for pretty much everything. It's just a matter of tracking the plugin down, getting it installed, getting it configured, and understanding how it runs. So sometimes getting your plugins to work properly can be a little bit tricky, can be a little bit hairy, but usually it's not too much trouble, and usually there's really good documentation with each of the plugins that you choose to use. All right, now that said, there seems to be, at least in my mind, two brands of plugins. Some plugins are going to assist with the unseen aspects of your blog. In other words, visitors to your site would be completely oblivious to the fact that you might be running some of these plugins. So in other words, there seems to me anyway to be a group of plugins that assist more with the running of your blog, maybe more of the admin aspects of your blog. Plugins that would help you with search engine optimization, SEO, for example, would be an example of a plugin that the visitor would be completely unaware of, right? We could also have plugins that would help us with our WordPress stats, so we can get some statistics back. How many visitors are we getting? What posts are they going and looking at? This sort of thing. And then there's sort of another brand of plugin that would help us with our blog performance. Again, all of these plugins remaining unseen, right? But then there's another batch of plugins that would be seen and would be used by the visitors to your blog. For example, a plugin that helps us create a sitemap for our blog, or a plugin that allows us to create forms, perhaps contact forms or feedback forms, right? Or, like I mentioned not too long ago, plugins that help us with video on our website or perhaps audio, right? And some of these plugins, by the way, some of them appear in the sidebar of your blog, of course, running down either the left or right side of your blog interface, while others would possibly appear inside your posts, inside the actual posts that you and I write for our blog, while others still may appear elsewhere on your blog, perhaps in the header, perhaps in the footer, or somewhere else, right? Okay, so I hope all of that makes sense, and really we're getting into the fun aspect of WordPress here when we get into plugins. So let's go and take a look at a few of the default plugins that we have for our WordPress account, and we'll also activate one of those plugins as well. So I'm going to keep my preview tab open here inside my browser, and of course I'll just head back over to my admin console there, which of course I still have open. And right now I'm looking at my dashboard, but what I want to do is I want to go and look at my plugins. So over on the left hand side, look for your plugins menu, go ahead and expand him, and I'm going to click on installed. Now, we saw this screen way back when, and this screen essentially allows us to manage our installed plugins. And I mentioned earlier that we have 2 plugins that are installed for us by default. They're not activated, they're just installed at this point. We have Akismet and we have Hello Dolly. And if you'll recall, Akismet is going to help us with our spam in our comments here. Akismet checks your comments against the Akismet web service to see if they look like spam or not. You need a WordPress API key. We'll talk about that in just a second. To use it, you can review and catch spam as it catches under comments, and so on and so on. There's a difference between an installed plugin and an activated plugin. We can have, for example, 5 plugins installed on our blog, but only have 2 of them activated and 2 of them actually running on our blog. Underneath Akismet, you'll notice we have Activate, Edit, and Delete. I'm going to go ahead and click on Activate. Okay, great. That brings us into this screen here. It tells us that the plugin is activated, and it says here that Akismet is almost ready. You need to enter your WordPress.com API key for it to work properly. So go ahead and click on that blue link here, and that'll bring us into this screen here. For many people, Akismet will greatly reduce or even completely eliminate the comment and trackback spam you get on your site. So this is kind of a big deal here. All right, now down below, it's asking us for the WordPress.com API key. Please enter an API key. If you have no idea what they're talking about, simply click on Get Your API Key or Get Your Key, and it'll bring you into this screen here. I'm not going to follow through with the steps here, but you can add in your email address and go and get your free key. When you receive your key, simply paste it into this field here and click on Update Options, and that's really all there is to it. So again, I'm not going to bother doing that here, but definitely do this on your live blog. I want to show you something else though. What's interesting about your plugins is they're going to add extra items to your admin backend here. For example, underneath plugins now, I now have an extra menu item, Akismet configuration, and that's the screen that I'm currently looking at right now. So I'm going to go back to installed here. As soon as I activated Akismet, it gave me this extra menu item. And a lot of times you'll see extra menu items, extra modules, extra widgets showing up, depending on what the plugin does, of course. But that's really the idea here. Okay, let's take a look at where we can go to find more WordPress plugins. And there are literally thousands of plugins that are available. It's a little bit overwhelming, as a matter of fact, because it's hard to know what plugins to use and what plugins you'll want to try out on your blog. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll install a plugin and I'll activate it and I'll mess around with it a little bit, and if I don't like it, then I'll deactivate it and I'll go and find a plugin that will possibly give me a similar result. So there's going to be a certain level of experimentation that happens here with you. And what I've done here is I've gone to WordPress.org's plugin directory. This is an online directory that showcases a lot of the available plugins for WordPress. So here's the URL, here's the address. It's going to be wordpress.org/extend/plugins. Or if you want, just do a Google search for WordPress plugins, and usually it's the very first search result. Okay, so let's see what we have in here. Plugins can extend WordPress to do almost anything you can imagine. In the directory, you can find, download, rate, and comment on all the best plugins the WordPress community has to offer. And check this out, over 8,000 plugins, over 77 million downloads and counting. So again, there's this massive, almost mind-boggling community online. Okay, so let's see what we have here. In this main center column here, we have our featured plugins. So we have PollDaddy polls and ratings. Create and manage PollDaddy polls and ratings from within WordPress. Well, that sounds kind of cool, the ability to add polls to your blog. But what the heck is PollDaddy? So again, you're going to have to do a little bit of research here. You'd have to possibly go to the PollDaddy website and read up on their services and how it all works. Here's one that I use, WordPress.com stats. You can have simple, concise stats with no additional load on your server by plugging into WordPress.com's stats system. So that's kind of a cool one. Here's another one that I use. WordPress or WP Supercache, a very fast caching engine for WordPress that produces static HTML files. Now, maybe that isn't the best description. Essentially what it does is it speeds up the performance of your WordPress blog, and I'm all about performance. So the idea here is you come in, you start to read up on these guys, and you go, hey, Jeff was talking about that WP Supercache. I want to know more about that. So I'm going to click on it, and that takes me into the plugin screen. Now let me just move over a little bit here. And let's see here, what do we have? Well, we've got a further description here. There's our author. This plugin generates static HTML files from your dynamic WordPress blog. Static files will be served to the vast majority of your users, but because a user's details are displayed in the comment, and so on and so on, you can read through this here and get an idea of what it does and how it's going to function. And across the top here, usually they'll have some links here. So that was the description tab. Installation. How the heck do we install this guy? Well, there's two ways to go about installing your plugins. You can install them manually, or you can have WordPress automatically install them. And we'll talk about installing plugins in just a moment. But here's our installation steps. And each plugin has usually its own unique set of installation steps. And of course, other links, FAQ, frequently asked questions, and other notes, and changelog and stats and so on. And then, of course, over on the right-hand side, we have some additional info. So we can download the plugin directly, but then we'd have to move the plugin files into our WordPress file folders. Not a big deal, but it is a little extra level of hassle there. And then some additional information, compatibility, and then usually, there it is, they have ratings, which is pretty cool. So anyway, hopefully all good here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up here, back out one level. I want to show you a couple of other things here. I'll back up more than one level, all the way out to the directory main page. There we are. That's what I was after. Back here. Okay, now I want to show you a couple of other things too, and I hope I don't overwhelm you here. Over on your right-hand side, you're going to see some additional lists, and my lists aren't showing up. My lists, as a matter of fact, are all the way down at the bottom of my page. What we have is most popular, newest plugins, and recently updated. So again, it's just another way of organizing the plugins. So here's one that I use as well. All-in-one SEO pack, that's for search engine optimization. There's your WordPress.com stats. Contact Form 7 for creating contact forms. WordPress Touch iPhone theme. Pretty darn cool. Anyway, you can get into all this. There's another one I use, by the way. Google XML sitemaps. So anyway, there it is. And of course, newest plugins and recently updated. Now, to get even further into this, here's something else that we can do. We can search for our plugins. If you wanted to find a plugin that would handle Flash video, you could do a search for FLV, for example, and see what sorts of results come up, right? Or what you can do is on the left-hand side, you can sort through all of the plugins. So maybe I'm looking for plugins related to my posts. Maybe I'm looking for plugins related to the admin aspects, or plugins that sit in my sidebar, or control my comments, and so on and so on and so on. So I will see you in, I guess, about a day or so. Whenever you're done kind of digging through all this, there's a lot out there and a lot of cool stuff that you can do to your WordPress blog. As I had alluded to just a moment ago, there are two different ways to go about installing plugins into your WordPress blog. One method is to download them directly from that plugin directory that you and I were just looking at. The problem there, though, is that you'll have to download all the files, take the plugin files, upload them into your WordPress site, and you have to put them in a very specific plugin folder, and then you have to go about activating them. So it's a little bit more hands-on, which I guess isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's a little bit more involved. Or what you can do is you can have WordPress perform an auto installation, an automatic installation of your plugin. And that's what I'm going to show you here. And I'm going to install a few plugins here with you so you really get a feel for how this is going to work. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to head into my plugins menu here on the left-hand side. So I'll just expand that plugin menu, and I'm going to go and choose Add New. So into Plugins and then Add New. inside this screen here. By the way, a quick side note, I keep getting that Akismet warning there. I didn't go and get that API key. If you did, then you won't see this yellow warning. But for the rest of the time here together, I'm going to have this Akismet warning up at the top, but that's okay. All right, so how do we go about installing our plugins? Well, what I can do is I can perform a search for a plugin if I want. And this is going to search that WordPress plugin directory that you and I were just looking at. Or what I can do is I can use the tag cloud here. So once again, maybe I want to search for plugins that are going to help me with my photos, or maybe with my social media, or maybe with video, right? Let's give this a try. I'm going to click on video. And what should happen here? Oh, we got an unknown error. That's really too bad. Okay, let me see if I can back up here. I want to try and get some search results here for you. Okay, let me try something else. Maybe what I'll do is I'll try, let's see here, I'll try Twitter. Hope I don't get an error here again. There might be something, there we go, that's what I was after. Okay, so we're going to get this list of search results, and we've got all kinds of stuff in here. Twitter Digest. And I would read up on it. This plugin uses the pseudo-cron facility available to WordPress to publish a daily or weekly post of tweets from the previous day. Well, that sounds kind of neat. So I might give that guy a try, maybe. Scroll down. WordPress Greet Box. This plugin lets you show a different greeting message for your new visitors depending on their refer URL. That's kind of cool. So, for example, when a Dig user clicks through from Dig, they'll see a message reminding them to dig your post. That's really cool. I've never seen that one before. I might have to give that one a try. Anyway, you get the idea here. There's the ratings. And then over on the right-hand side, we have install. Now, what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go back to search here up at the top, that little search link there. And there's a specific plugin that I want to look for. So I'm going to click inside the search field here, and I'm going to search for all-in-one SEO. That was one that we saw earlier, right? And I'll click on Search Plugins. Hopefully we won't get any errors here. Okay, great. There's our first result, all-in-one SEO pack. That's the guy that we're after. Optimizes your WordPress blog for search engines. Perfect. Now you can scroll through some of these results though, of course, but I'm going to go and install this guy. So over on the right-hand side, go ahead and click on Install. We're going to get this install screen coming up. This is very similar to what you and I just saw on the WordPress.org site, right? So we have the description tab. I can read through this if I want. I can see the ratings. I can see all that extra info. I can read up on the installation, the FAQs there, but instead I'm going to click on Install Now. This is the auto installation I was telling you about. So we just kind of kick back and wait for WordPress to do its thing. So we can read through the progress here. Downloading install package, unpacking, installing, successfully installed. Let's go in. Well, you know what? I was going to click on activate plugin, but check this out. Underneath plugins there on the left, click on installed. Okay, there's Akismet. There's Hello Dolly. There's all-in-one SEO pack. Notice that the deactivated plugins appear in gray and the activated plugins appear in white. So I'm going to go ahead and click on activate for this fellow. Okay, now, as you can see, the glaring red message at the top here. The all-in-one SEO pack must be configured. Go to the admin page to enable and configure the plugin. Now, I'm not going to get into this because this is very specific to this particular plugin, but you can certainly mess around with this if you want. I just wanted to show you how to install a plugin and activate it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to deactivate this guy. And let's go and grab one more plugin here. So once again, over on the left-hand side, underneath plugins, I'm going to go and click on Add New. And I'm going to do a search here for WP Super Cache. Kind of sounds like a game show, doesn't it? Anyway, click on search plugins, and we'll see our results here. WP Super Cache. Okay, great. Click on install. Kind of feel like going on a game show now. Anyway, there we are. Same process, right? Install now. This is really like the hands-off way to install your plugins, right? This is super easy stuff. There's our progress there. Now, this time you might want to click on Activate Plugin from this screen, or you can go back to your install screen there and activate it there. really it's the same thing. It doesn't really make a difference where you do it. Okay. Now, WP Super Cache is disabled. Please go to your plugin page to enable caching. So I would follow that link through, and then look at this. I've got to go and configure all this. So WP Super Cache status, I've got to turn this guy on. You can read through all this and learn exactly about how it works. This is cool too. I mean, this is all free, right? People are developing this and they're spending their time creating all these plugins, so it's always nice to throw them a little super cache their way, right? All right. Anyway, that's the idea here. I'm going to go ahead and click on Update Status. That's really the idea here. Every plugin is unique. Every plugin has its own admin interface, like the WP Super Cache here. And hopefully I've really given you at least a peek into the world of WordPress plugins.